Parliament has wrapped up for the year. It's gone quickly, hasn't it? What grade would you give the Albanese government for their first stint in office? They've passed a lot of legislation, we know that, but is it the stuff that really matters to people like you and I? The stuff that they campaigned on? Cost of living, energy prices, and how have the opposition settled in? Have they effectively held those in power to account? Joining me now, National Senator Bridget McKenzie. Senator, thank you so much for your time. I wanted to start by asking you about The Voice and your party's decision to go early on a stance on that. Do you think retrospectively it was maybe the wrong move, given it doesn't look like you're all on the same page?
Well, not at all. We went through an internal process as a political party led by our own Jacinta Nampijinpa Price with a number of backbenchers who have spent the last couple of months examining this question and then coming and reporting back to the Nationals Federal Party room, where as a room we made a decision that we would not be supporting a voice to Parliament for three reasons. One, we don't want to see our nation divided on race. Two, we want to actually see the dial shift in real and practical and pragmatic ways for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. And three, the fact is the Labor Party will not be delivering the level of detail that we believe is required when you're looking at changing our nation's founding document. And that was again reinforced today on the ABC by the Minister herself, Linda Burney. I think the Labor Party's trying to do what they did at the election. Minimum details, small target on the referendum. Australians will vote for the vibe and leave it up to politicians to decide what the actual makeup of the voice will be, and we just don't think that's good enough.
Do you think the coalition has done a good enough job in putting pressure on the government, particularly when it comes to those things that they did campaign on, like cost of living and energy? Because it looks to me like the government is very, very pleased with themselves and they're really going into Christmas with big smiles on their faces, aren't they?
Well, I think it shows the difference and the hubris, the difference between the Labor Party here federally and what mums and dads and small businesses are feeling on the ground right around the country. They don't have a smile on their face as they head into Christmas, with energy prices soaring, inflation going through the roof, and the RBA's rate rises also significantly impacting everyone's mortgage repayments, and that's only going to get tougher. So I thought it was a real discordance between, you know, the Labor Party cock-a-hoot as they left Parliament this week isn't actually how Australians are feeling on the ground. And, you know, I think in terms of the cost of living issue, that is all we've been talking about as an opposition. So I know in each and every question time it is being raised in both the Senate and the House. So we're doing our bit. But unfortunately, and we've seen that after 7 months, these guys still have no plan to deal with the rising energy prices, despite knowing it was an issue going into the election.
Something else that was said during the election campaign, and this came from the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was that he wanted Parliament to be a more respectful environment. This happened 3 weeks ago.
Senator McKenzie, do you always have to have the last word? I was going to defend you then. Honestly, like a naughty little girl, can you just be quiet while someone finishes? You don't have to have the last word.
Thank you, Chair, but on the point of order that Senator Whish-Wilson raised, asking you to withdraw calling me a naughty little girl.
Yes, I'll take that back. You're not a naughty little girl. I apologise.
Has anything really changed in Parliament, Senator, do you think?
Oh, look, that is not the worst sexist incident I've had in my time in politics. It's not the first. It unfortunately won't be the last. I think politics should be robust. We are fighting for the future of our country, and we all come to this place with very different views of how to do that. So we feel very passionately, obviously, so that's going to be a robust discussion, but it has to be respectful and, you know, kinder and gentler. Maybe that's never going to be how Parliament is because of the nature of what we do here, but it has to be more respectful, particularly, can I say, of Conservative women. I think Conservative women, you look at what happened to Nicole Flint, the diatribe that I've been subjected to, you know, we shouldn't be subjected to death threats, our children's lives being threatened, etc., and that's somehow okay because you don't agree with our values.
You don't need to convince me of that. Absolutely agree with you there. Now, I want to go back to high school for a moment. I want you to give me a grade for the government and for the opposition for, say, the past 6 or 7 months.
Look, I'd give the coalition a very, very solid B+. I've been really buoyed by how quickly we've responded as two political parties to finding ourselves in opposition and holding the government to account. And I think if you look at how the budget was prosecuted, they thought they'd walk in there talking about any regional spending as waste and rorts, but you know, we're able to actually say, these aren't wasteful spending programs, and they were very quickly on the defensive for the cuts they made in the budget to those programs. So I think we did really well there. We've been very, very united. I think if you look at previous eras where parties have gone into opposition, Bill Shorten and the Labor Party, when Tony Abbott won, and subsequently, you know, when Brendan Nelson was the leader of the Liberal Party after the 2007 election, there's a lot of instability, there was a lot of soul searching, there was a lot of leadership tensions, etc. And you're not finding that at all within the Liberal or the National Party. We've both got new leaders post-election, and I think we're all rucking in hard under both of them to, you know, prosecute our agenda. And from the National Party's perspective, we had a super successful federal election, transitioned a lot of seats, which is really difficult for us, and we also held all our seats against what was a national swing against the coalition. So we also backed that up at a Victorian level. So we're going into the Christmas holidays knowing we've got a big job ahead of us next year to keep the pressure on, but I think we've handled the first 6-7 months of opposition as well as could be expected.
Okay. Very generous. What about for the government?
Oh, that's a tough one. Look, I think, you know, on delivering on their election promises, they've delivered on 50% of their election promises. There's many they haven't delivered on. I guess what I've been disappointed about from the government is this big talk prior to the election of accountability and transparency. But even within government, it's very, very quickly, whether it's question time, whether it's cutting estimates, they had to backflip on that. Senate estimates were cut in next year's program. We're able to hold them to account on that and get it back. But they are OPDs that we're trying to get through the Senate as well, get documents and answers. They are really evasive. So I'd give them a solid C. They've got some of their election promises through. They haven't achieved on the tough decisions, though, that you have to make in government. Sometimes you have to choose the least worst response to a difficult challenge facing our nation, and they've failed in their budget and now on energy on those big ticket items.